there friends, and welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be doing a mid-year Notion reset review, and the big reason that motivated this is I kind of realized I haven't checked in with the objectives, the projects, the whatnot that I created to start off this year. It was my first time using OKR goal setting, and I went crazy at the beginning of the year with all of these objectives and projects and goals that I wanted to complete. And since I did that, I really am honestly not 100% sure how close I am tracking to those objectives and goals. So in this Notion mid-year reset review, whatever the hell you want to call it, really what I'm doing is I am checking back in with those objectives from the beginning of the year and modifying my reviews and my systems so I'm more able to stay on track with and check in with those objectives and those goals. I've realized more and more that I love my resets and reviews. I love that I sit down and do that, but I really need to integrate together my OKR goal setting systems with the systems that I've been using to do reviews and reflections on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. So that is what we are doing today with, as usual, a good old-fashioned screen share. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this. Again, I'm going to be giving you a glimpse into kind of how I did my biannual review, not necessarily doing it with you, but just showing you some of the things that I did and kind of walking you through why I did them. So let's go ahead and let's dive into this. You can kind of see my Notion has changed a little bit recently. I'm going to actually share a video very soon where I walk you through kind of the Notion refresh that I did. But the first place we're going to actually go is we're going to go to my OKR goals page. A big reason why I did this is I realized that I set a whole bunch of objectives at the beginning of the year, and then I hadn't really built it into my systems to check back into those objectives. I kind of set them at the beginning of the year, said that these were things that I wanted to achieve. And then as I was setting my goals, I would kind of do so very kind of forgetting about those objectives that I set at the start of the year. So the first thing that I really did is I went in and I looked at the objectives that I had said I wanted to achieve, and I organized them by quarter. So at one point in my OKR goal setting system, I created different quarters, different ways that I could classify things by quarters. And what I realized, that I was actually achieving a number of things, but there are a number of things that I had forgotten about. I was working on this podcast tour stuff. I was working on this objective right here. I was learning through courses, but actually not really, because I'd kind of forgotten about that goal. A lot of these other goals at the bottom, become a better content creator, to organize my digital life. I'd kind of been working on these very haphazardly, but not necessarily intentionally over the course of the quarter. So one of the first things that I did is I went through and I organized all of the objectives that I had that I wanted to focus on, and I organized them into the remaining quarters for this year. I did leave Q1 and Q2 up because this is going to be Q1 and Q2 for 2024, but I did leave them up because I want to kind of start thinking about where to put things. So you can kind of see, I'm going to unhide this column. You can see all of the stuff that I really I decided either to move or I decided to deprioritize. So for example, this one is an objective that I was working toward, but I actually decided that even though I've completed this project, I don't actively want to make this objective something that I am working toward at this point. So one of the things that I did is I moved it out of the quarters, but I actually think this is something I want to focus a little bit more on in 2024. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in Q1. I also decided I'm not going to focus on this right now. I'm not going to focus on this right now. I don't necessarily want to make that an active objective. I think I almost am setting this a little bit more as an intention as opposed to an objective. So I didn't want to assign that to any particular quarter. This is definitely not a high priority. Working on my spirituality and my mindset, this is absolutely something I want to work toward, but it is just not a priority at this moment. This is probably one that is also going to become a Q1, maybe a Q4. I actually might drag it into Q4 because I do want to do this. This is definitely something I want to achieve and work toward, but it's just not a high priority. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep it in Q1. It's not a high priority for this year. I also have a lot of other stuff down here as well. A lot of these just aren't high priorities right now. I want to write a book eventually, but it's just not a high priority right now. So these are things that are objectives that I have, but that I'm just not actively prioritizing. So then the next thing that I did is I went inside of each of these, and we'll go ahead and use this example because it's one from my day job. And I created projects underneath these. I also have here, let's go ahead and expand this so it's not so crowded. So I created projects underneath these, and then I designated which projects are currently in progress and kind of roughly when I want to start on some of these other projects, which I actually have over here as tasks. So I kind of started hashing out the projects and then as many tasks as I could think of for those respective projects. So like over here, I have some subjects that I'm working on adding for my day job. And I went ahead and I designated those subjects. So that's kind of what this stuff is here. And so then next, let's go ahead and go back to our OKR goals page. So once I went in and I kind of brainstormed what the projects were, brainstormed what, I'm gonna go ahead and rehide this, brainstorm what the tasks might be. I then did the exact same thing with my projects as I did with my objectives. So I kind of had this array of objectives here, but I wanted to be able to view them by what I'm working on by quarter. So kind of same thing with my projects. I had this array of projects here, but I wanted to designate them by quarter. So let's go ahead and move this over here. So this might look like a crap ton of projects. And actually, I just realized that I do have this scheduled. This is kind of a subpart of this objective, the one where it's work on my spirituality. So I'm going to move that to Q1 and Q2, and I'm going to remove this guy from Q3 because it's just not going to happen. So my projects that I'm working on here are to become Notion certified. I've got some launches and some themes that I'm working on. I'm working on a certification in my day job, as well as adding these subjects in my day job. And then I also really want to, I'm working on a lot of stuff for memberships right now. Sorry, I keep leaning out of my video here. I'm working on a number of things for my memberships right now. So creating a Notion beginner foundations course. And then personally, I'm really working on my morning routines. And then I'm also really working on learning some more about the channels, the social media channels that I'm interested in building in. So I went through and I organized the projects that I am working on by quarter as well. Now I just kind of feel so much more aligned with like the broader objectives that I was hoping to achieve and the projects that will help move me toward those things. Now, this probably looks like a shit ton of projects, but I kind of was already working on some of these things for my day job. So these were kind of ongoing things. These are things that I do every quarter and they're very spread out over the quarter. So I still feel like I'm okay with working on this many things. I might regret that by the end of the quarter now that I kind of see it all laid out. But there's a little bit of experimentation I feel that's involved in this as well. Do you have the right amount of stuff on here? I don't want to put too little on here because then I feel like I won't use my time well. But I definitely, there's a part of me that's a little concerned that this is too much, but I think going into it knowing, hey, this might be too much, I've got a feel for what are kind of the lower priority things here. So in all actuality, as much as I want to become Notion certified, it really isn't that high of a priority. So I could almost like sort these by priority too, if I wanted to. So I would say the Notion Foundations is the next highest priority. Then my updating my planner videos is the next highest priority. And then these three things at the bottom are the lowest priority. So that is kind of something a little added that I really just did right now. I didn't even do it the first time I did this, but I think having a visual prioritization of what things are really, really important to me and what things are lower on the totem pole is helpful here. I also already had my key results, which I have a shit ton of them, and my current habits inside of here as well. But I've already been tracking all of these habits. So really from there, after I'd kind of gone through and started to organize all of these things, the next thing for me to do was to integrate this stuff that I just talked about, these objectives and these projects, into my actual quarterly planning. As I've already talked about on this YouTube channel, I sit down every quarter and I do a quarterly business audit, which is still to be done. I haven't done it yet for Q2 of this year. But I also do a quarterly review for myself personally. And one of the big reasons why I wanted to do this biannual review is I wanted to make sure I was tying these objectives and these projects more deliberately into my quarterly review. So I went through and I made a few changes to how I do my quarterly review. So we're going to pop into my reviews and reflections, to my quarterly reviews, and let's go and let's look at the template, because the template is really the big place where I change things. So the template, the top part of it is a lot of it's the same. I pull in all of the monthly reviews from the quarter so I can very, very easily kind of audit myself. I looked at what worked and what didn't work. I pulled my top 3 successes, my top 3 memories, lessons, and gratitudes. I really need to change that icon because it's driving me nuts. And then after I do all of this, I check into my life vision and I go through and I kind of rate the different parts of my life, how I'm feeling about them. And then I go through and I say why I gave myself these scores, what would make me feel closer to a 10, and then I identify the areas that I want to focus on for that next quarter. So a lot of this is very, very similar to what I've done in the past. The part I changed quite a bit is this part down here. And I don't know that I've gone through this once I've made some of these changes or since I've made some of these changes, but I first and foremost added this thing on the top here where I can see my objectives by quarter and my projects by quarter. So that I made this little toggle so I could very, very easily expand this and kind of remind myself of these things as I was thinking about the goals that I wanted to set. So that was one thing that I added, is I wanted to very, very easily be able to see, okay, how did I lay out these objectives and these projects over the course of these next few quarters? And then after I was able to remind myself of that, this is really where so much stuff changed. So how I kind of changed this is I wanted to set my first goal and I wanted to find what area it was a part of, what objectives it aligned with, what projects or new projects would go with this, and then what key results I had. I also actually added another thing where I said, does this have any habits that will support its achievement? And so let me actually go ahead and copy this into all of these other guys, because I do have this in my current quarter. And then what I can kind of do is I can go through and I can like basically map out my week in hours to see like, am I going to actually have enough time to focus on these 3 things? So that is kind of how I went about this. And then down here, I kind of detailed some steps for myself. So I updated this entire part down at the bottom here so that it's very, very deliberately addressing the objectives, projects, key results, habits that I use when I do my OKR goal setting. So that is really why I wanted to do this and wanted to share this and wanted to kind of bring it all back to my OKR goal setting. So let's go ahead and let's look at the quarterly review that I just did. So I did all of these updates. I did all of these check-ins on how much am I working toward the objectives that I set at the beginning of the year. And then this is what I did at the end of June. So I have all of my monthly reviews. I went through all of these monthly reviews and I pulled out the things that were working, the things that didn't work. Then I went through and I defined my top 3 successes, memories, lessons learned, and gratitudes. And then down here, this is like the meat of it. I have actually done this now. I checked into my life vision. This is just like a nice reminder of the things that I want. We'll go ahead and click into the life vision so I can show you. So it's dream home, ideal day, level of health and fitness, how I'm pushing myself intellectually, emotions I'm experiencing. So all of this is stuff that I am really kind of wanting to stay on top of. So all of this is stuff that I check in with. And then once I've done that check-in, I kind of use that information to give myself a rating. And I say why I gave myself these scores, what would it feel like to get closer to a 10 in these parts of my life, and then I pick out the areas that I want to focus on. And then I checked in to my last quarter's goals. This one I completed, this one I'm moving closer, and then I defined my goals for the next quarter. So one of my goals is to set up and start promoting my Notions Foundation course and update my existing memberships. So that's related to my business. It is related to these objectives. It is related to these projects, which you remember were inside of my projects by quarter. They are right here and right here. So I have that in here. Does it have any key results? Yes, it does. And I defined them. Does it have any habits? Not really, but it does have a lot of first actions that I went in and added. And then for my other 2 goals, this is very health and routines and habits focused. And then this goal is I want to take a course to improve at meditation, especially meditation for stress reduction. So then I went down here and I kind of defined everything. So I filtered it by quarter so I can see my objectives by quarter. I went into that. I actually tweaked this a little bit, so I should probably update my template to reflect this. So I clicked into each objective for each quarter and I started adding any new projects.
Then I toggle over here and I add and I define any new habits. I didn't really have any new habits for this particular quarter. Then I go in and I define my first actions for my project. So I just click into each of these projects and add as many actions as I can think of for these projects. Then I define my results for the key results that are specific to these objectives, which I'd already done actually for all of these. And then I go through and I add anything to my tasks. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put this at the end of the month because I need to reread that book. Okay, so that is the process. And then the very, very last thing I do is I do that my week in hours. So this is automatically set up to calculate, how much time you're gonna have remaining based on what you have defined. So if I get 8 hours of sleep every night and I'm putting 28 hours a week toward my day job, and let's say I'm putting 35 hours a week toward my business. This is really, really high because generally I probably put more like 20, but I wanted to kind of over exaggerate because I have so many business goals. I wanted to over exaggerate this so that I could really make sure I had enough time for it. I try to leave myself about 2 hours of flex time per day, and then about 3 hours for self-care per day. And then this final goal is relating to this one about meditation right here. And so then after I plug all of this in, I see how many hours I have remaining. That's what this guy calculates. And the goal is to leave 10 to 20 hours per week unscheduled for like flex time and, what do we call it? Errands. So that's kind of the goal of all of this. And I'm feeling really, really good going into this next quarter. I've got a lot on my plate, but I'm excited for it. And I really, really feel like the system's going to keep me on top of it.
So that is it. That is my Notion mid-year reset and review. And honestly, like I said in the screen share, I am so pumped and I feel so aligned and so excited for everything that I'm going to be moving toward and doing this quarter. And I really, really feel like each iteration and each step that I'm taking is making my Notion systems more and more and more integrated, more and more working for me and how I think and how I set goals. And I hope it gave you some ideas for yours as well. Thank you as always for those of you who are here, who like, who comment, who subscribe, who let me know what you are vibing with. I really appreciate it so much. And I've gotten some wonderful comments from some of you recently and I just really appreciate it. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing on this channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe so the algorithm keeps recommending this stuff to you. And hell, if you have a friend who's super into Notion who you think would love these videos as well, please, please, please share it with them so that we can have them join this Coach Ellen gang that we have on YouTube. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here and I will see you next time. Bye.